Spring may finally be just around the corner, but with a recent spell of almost biblical weather, many people are considering investing in something with a bit more ground clearance and a double helping of traction. While Mazda is relatively new to the SUV world with the CX-5, they've taken the opportunity to showcase their various SkyActiv technologies as well as their Kodo design language. The latter is most obvious in the shape of the front grille, the wing motif that crosses into the headlights, the flared wheel arches and sculpted flanks, and the high shoulder line that flows into the rear lights. Inside, there's steering wheel adjustment for both reach and rake, while the sportily bolstered front seats offer a good range of travel, especially for height. The dashboard has a simple layout, with the ventilation controls deserving a special mention for their satisfying action. The hooded dials are nice and clear, with a screen on the right that can display a variety of trip information. While the rest of the car's functions are governed by Mazda's multimedia controller, a twisty-turny iDrive style wheel that provides access to a series of menus displayed on the colour touchscreen in the centre console. And this allows you to flick through radio stations in your MP3s, change various vehicle settings, or program the TomTom navigation system. If the controller isn't for you though, you can at least resort to poking at menus on the screen with your finger, or use the not always successful voice control system. Cabin storage is okay, although you do only get one cup holder because of the multimedia controller, but there's space for coins, drinks and phones under the central armrest, complete with a charging point and a USB input. Rear seat passengers should be happy enough, and there's good headroom despite the sloping roofline, although middle seat passengers might feel a little short-changed, but the reason for that becomes apparent when you fold the seats forward. The CX-5 is unusual in having a 40-20-40 split rear seat, and that allows you to carry long loads and two rear seat passengers at the same time. In fact, this sense of flexibility continues into the boot, with Mazda's excellent low cover that attaches to the tailgate so it never gets in your way, and there's a dedicated space to store it under the floor when not in use. The underfloor storage is easy to get into too, with a split folding floor and even a clever little hook to hold it up out the way when fiddling with the tools. The rear seats can be folded independently and easily using levers mounted in the boot walls, and with all seats folded, space increases from 503 litres to 1,620. The CX-5 is available with three engines, a 2-litre petrol with 165 PS, plus a pair of 2.2-litre twin-turbo diesels with either 150 PS or, as in our test car, 175 PS. The 150 diesel is likely to be the pick of the bunch, chiefly because of its impressive economy of 61.4 mpg and CO2 emissions of just 119 grams per kilometre. For sheer grunt, however, it's difficult to argue with the 175 diesel. It's 420 Nm of torque, squirting the CX-5 0 to 62 miles an hour in just 8.8 seconds. It's quite efficient too, and although we couldn't reach the government figure of 54.3 mpg, we averaged around the 41 mpg mark during our time with it. All three engines are mated as standard to a 6-speed manual transmission that boasts a stubby gear lever and a beautifully short throw that wouldn't be out of place on an MX-5. Coupled with a diesel sheer grunt, it makes snicking your way through the ratios a real joy. Luckily, the handling doesn't let the side down, and the Mazda suspension has been retuned for 2014 for greater comfort. It corners surprisingly flatly too, and while you could say that body roll builds when pressing onto the twisties, the point is that you can press on. The suspension soaks up bumps well without transmitting much thump into the cabin, although the 19-inch wheels of our sport model do generate noticeable tyre noise and can fidget a little in town. Out on the open road, you'll appreciate the diesel engine's refinement, staying remarkably smooth even at the red line, particularly unusual for a diesel. Overtaking slower moving traffic is drama-free thanks to the engine's vast torque reserves and of course that fine gear shift. Away from the tarmac, the CX-5's 210mm of ground clearance and entirely automatic four-wheel drive system, standard on the 175 diesel and optional on the 150, should allow you to navigate muddy tracks without too much difficulty. There are no buttons or levers to worry about, instead the system can send up to 50% of the engine's torque to the rear wheels whenever loss of traction is detected, and while we didn't attempt to go rock crawling in it, the CX-5 handled most things we could reasonably ask of it. In fact, our only gripe with the CX-5 is the lack of an entry-level model to compete with the new Nissan Qashqai, the CX-5 starting price for $21,595 being some £4,000 more than the Nissan. That said, however, it's possible Mazda have the answer waiting in the wings in the form of the recently announced 1.5-litre diesel engine. Time will tell. So while Mazda may have been fashionably late to the SUV party, as it turns out, the CX-5 was well worth the wait.